Kia ora koutou and welcome to On Mars Extra Time. Now, Extra Time is a format that we use when there's games I want to talk about that I can't quite cover in 3 minutes. And if you watch the review of On Mars in about 3 minutes, you'll see there was an awful lot I didn't get to cover. Now, Mars is a fascinating topic and something that's captured our imagination forever. Let's go back to Galileo when he first built his telescope and observed the surface of Mars for the first time. I wonder what he saw with that. Now, of course, Galileo was persecuted for his beliefs about a heliocentric world and his observations of the heavens. But thankfully, the board game community is far more forgiving than the puritanical Italian Catholics of the early Renaissance. Now, of course, there'll be some people out there who say, oh, clearly you didn't get the game. Well, if I didn't get the game, how did I do the 3-minute recap of it? And it's not like complex games aren't my jam. These are my 3 favorite games that are new to me from the last year, and they're the Gaia Project, Underwater Cities, and Brass Birmingham. Like, yeah, they might not individually be as complex as On Mars as itself, but I'm not someone who just likes party games and lols. What really got to me though is that I really wanted to enjoy this game. I wanted to unpack this thing and just have a really good wild time with it. Mars is a passion of mine. I'm actually designing my own game set in Mars, so a complex Euro game set in Mars was exactly the sort of thing I was after, but it just kept throwing up roadblocks each and every time I tried to get into it. Obstacles that just got in the way of me having fun. Now, well-known board gamer Trey Parker, before he got into board gaming, had a little TV show called South Park, and he had some rules about how you write a script in that. There was an interview I saw where he talked about how they wanted to get rid of the word "and" from their storytelling. Instead of saying, Cartman and the boys go to the mall and Kenny gets run over, he wanted the story to flow and make more sense. Cartman wants to go to the mall because there's a new toy there he wants. He brings the boys along because he wants to show off to the others that he gets to have the toy and they don't. But because the toy is really popular, that leads to a stampede of people turning up to claim it, which results in Kenny being killed. This kind of idea can work for board games as well, and I like playing games where the idea of what I'm doing fits with the story and fits with the setting. Things happen because they make sense, because it leads on from something. The answer isn't, this happens because it's a game. And I'm going to run through a bunch of examples in On Mars that happen because game. It might actually be easier to do this bit in front of the old green screen, so magic effects. First off, there's just how the worker placement spots work. Some require that you put down workers, some don't. Some can be boosted by additional workers, some can be boosted by crystals. There's just no consistency there, and that all seems to happen because game. Then there's the core idea that you can only take actions in the area you're at, whether you are in space or you're on the planet. You're meant to represent the lead of this project. Can't you use a radio? Is there no radio communications between Mars and the surface and back and forth? The only reason that works is because game. Discovery tiles come down when you return to the surface and they're placed on the surface, but you know exactly what they are and you can get to them with your rover. Why do you know exactly what they are and why do they appear when you fly down? Because game. And why does the resupply ship turn up exactly when the colony moves to the next level? It's totally player controlled, which makes sense because game. And why when you place this tile instead of this tile, this one generates crystals on the board? Why is this generating crystals? What's the rationale behind that? There isn't one. It happens because game. Which brings me to a side point about crystals. What the hell are crystals? Why are they such a big deal on Mars? What are they doing? Why are they powering so many of these building projects? Why do workers move so much better and faster when they're powered by crystals? The only crystals I know that make people go harder and faster is crystal meth. But Jay, all of that's okay because it is just a game, and games are allowed to have because game logic. Not every game is an intense simulation that's supposed to be an accurate depiction of something that goes on. My problem is with On Mars that each of these little glitches and interruptions gets in the way of what's already quite a complex game. It's like when you're watching one of your favorite videos and you get to a really interesting point and right in the middle of it an ad plays and that totally distracts you from what's going on. And if you were watching this without an ad blocker, an ad probably just popped up there, which was by design to prove that point. That's how playing On Mars felt to me. Every time I sought to get into it, there was just this little incongruity that jolted me back out and made me go, why is this game so frustrating? Why does it not feel like I think it should feel? And again, that is an entirely subjective and personal thing. On Mars didn't feel like the colony builder I wanted it to be. And one of the big reasons for that is I felt Mars was absent. Well, yes, I know that Mars is actually in the game, like it's literally on the board. This is a game on Mars, but Mars doesn't present as a character. It's not throwing out variables. It's not throwing out randomness. It's not contributing to the game in any way except for being the board that you play stuff on. There's no dust storms. There's no issue with Mars. It's just a board. And because the game never really felt like it was embracing its theme as much as it could have, it really felt like it could have been set anywhere to me. It could have been set in Burgundy for all we know. A lot of the features in the game could have been replicated by other things. The ship going back and forth, well, that's just like any colonialism game. The building of infrastructure, the worker placement, it could have all been themed around a colony in the New World. And I know I keep stressing that games shouldn't do that, and that's not something I want to see more often. I want to see more games on Mars and doing science fiction settings instead of real world colonialism. But I also want them to play with the idea that they are on Mars. And I'm going to talk about a couple of other games that I think have done this a little bit better. Now, these games are not perfect by any means, and they do have flaws, but I think these games capture what I wanted from On Mars in a better way than On Mars did. But first, let's kill the elephant in the room. I'm not going to talk about Terraforming Mars. Terraforming Mars is a totally different sort of game to On Mars, and I think comparing the two it's just weird. The only thing they've got in common is Mars in the title, and they're about Mars. Gameplay-wise, completely different. And of the two games I want to talk about, the first one is First Martians. Like, oh god, First Martians, this is a game with a terrible reputation. A lot of people have panned it and said it's unplayable or awful or just a complex mess, and it kind of is in places, but what it does really well is make you feel like you are struggling to build this colony on Mars. Mars is very much a character in First Martians. As things break down and you have to explore the environment around you, and you don't actually know what's out there until you go exploring. The missions are something more than get the most points, and there's a real feeling of scarcity. When you break down that last set of spare parts, you're like, I hope this is enough to get the colony through until we're resupplied. First Martians, for all its flaws, embraces that it's on Mars. It embraces the setting, and it embraces what the realities of a Martian colony or a Martian game should be. That Mars is a character, that it's present, and that it's scary. The next game I want to talk about is Martians: A Story of Civilization, a game even more critiqued and harassed and hassled than First Martians, if that's possible. Martians: A Story of Civilization shipped with one of the worst rulebooks ever. It was really hard to figure out how the game worked, and that put a lot of people off, and early reviews were terrible. But it's one I picked up because I'm a sucker for everything Mars, and I played it and I got through the rulebook, and there is a cracking good game there. And again, it has the same premise as on Mars. You're building that initial colony, but the process about how you go about doing that is totally and utterly different. It's still worker placement, but when you place workers, they get to do fun stuff like move around the mining robot to collect minerals. Minerals aren't just collected by putting people on the board. You actually have to go dig them up, and you don't know where they are yet until you do some surveying. There's a lot of missions to do here, and there's scarcity. There's never enough food, there's never enough time and resources, and you're constantly worried about the colony collapsing and falling over. Instead of being powered by crystal meth, you're powered by power. And high winds can make your wind farms work better, and dust storms can just completely screw your solar plants. So what's the point of a review like this? Why am I crapping over this game? Why am I taking this extra time to talk about it? And I think that's because I had such high expectations. I really wanted this to be the definitive Mars game for me. With all the work I've done researching my own game on Mars, I'm just enamored with the planet. I love to see games made about it. I watch movies made about it. I play video games made about it. I just really interested in Mars and everything to do with Mars. So perhaps I put this one up on a pedestal it didn't deserve to be on. And, you know, not every game has to be made for me, and I don't have to like every game, and you can love On Mars, you can love its granularity, you can love all its little wacky exceptions and how you go about building engines. That can be your thing, and that is perfectly fine. But as a critic, I've got to tell you what I feel about games. And what I felt about On Mars was that it was set on Mars, but that it didn't really use Mars anywhere near as well as it could have. Now there's the potential that they do an expansion which changes all of these things. It brings Mars in as more of a character, that throws in dust storms, environmental effects, and weirdness, and solar radiation, all that good stuff, fine particles getting into the systems and screwing with everything. I mean, that would be amazing if they dedicated an expansion to doing all that kind of stuff. I would definitely revisit the game. Aliens? Really? I think one of my next steps would be to try another game by the same designer that's not set on Mars. I've played CO2 before, and I thought that was a really excellent game. It made my top 100 in 2018, but I haven't played it in about 3 years. Conan, one of the testers on the channels, absolutely assured me that I'm going to like The Gallerist. So I'm going to try and track down a copy of that and give that one a go. Because ultimately, I do like crunchy games. I do like engine builders. I do like games that have lots of decision points and lots to master. I just didn't like this one for some reason, and yeah, it's probably because it was on Mars. That's almost entirely why it didn't click for me, because I was expecting something that wasn't there. And that concludes the spoken part of this review.
It's a god-awful long affair for the game with the Martian flair, and the casuals are yelling no, but the grognards have told them to go. But the fun is nowhere to be seen. Now we slump in our sunken seats, grab the bits with the brightest hue, and we stare at the reference sheet. But the game is a saddening bore, and we've played it 10 times or more. I could spit in the eyes of fools as they ask me to focus on worker placement on the Mars board. Oh man, look at those rovers go. Is it finally my go? Take a look at the next guy moving up the wrong tech. Oh man, wonder if he'll ever know. He let the best blueprints go. Is there fun on Mars?